Hello, just taking a roll call. Is OG here in entirety?
OG's hair complete.
Cool. Is O here in entirety?
Yes.
Is CG here in entirety?
Yep, we are here.
Is CO here in entirety?
Yep, we're here.
Perfect. I guess we can start. Then I can see the panel here as well. Hi guys, I am Abinaya and I'll be the chair for this round. Congratulations on making it till the Novice finals. With me on panel we have
Hi, this is Bhavya. All the best.
Hi, this is Dwijdeep. All the best.
Hi, this is Kaustavi. All the best.
Hi, this is Miles. Wishing you all the best.
Cool. A couple of general housekeeping rules before we begin. Attack the case, not the opponents. POIs are highly encouraged, especially in close calls. It helps us clear out things. Do not exceed after 7:15, nothing will be noted. With that, PM whenever. Here.
Yeah, just like 30-40 seconds, please. Yeah, Kierat will be going as Prime Minister. Preferred pronouncing him. POS preferably after the 5th minute mark. Do not vocalize, just type in the chat or raise your hands. I'll take one from closing. If not closing, then opening. Before I start my speech, a couple of shout outs because this is like my second novice finals. First of all, shout out to my Himesh, like my teammate Himesh. I hope he learns weighing one day. But also shout out to like DevSoc CVS for like supporting me, teaching me BP, etc. For all like my friends who are here specking. But also to probably my seniors and also to my parents who have like bought me KFC so that I don't starve while doing this comp. But then starting my yeah, and a third as well. He's judging OGF right now. But yes. Starting my speech then in 3, 2, and 1. First of all, what is this veil of ignorance, right? I think this veil of ignorance is that you do not know what you are going to be born as. You can be born as like a male or a female, or you could be born in like any sort of minority community or like in any sort of country, in any sort of like economic state as well. Probably you can be rich, you can be poor, but also probably your sexual identity as well. You can probably be straight, you could probably be gay, you could probably like have any sort of other sexual identity as well. I think this sort of uncertainty, first of all, but also then let's now compare these worlds, right? What is this religious world and what is this unreligious world? I think this uncertainty, first of all, is going to be our biggest push at OG. I think these religious worlds currently, which is probably the current status quo, is very strict. It runs under certain rules because it is like, hey, my God said this, the society should function like this. I am not going to listen to anyone else apart from my gods. But this is also problematic because there are multiple religions, multiple interpretations of certain religions, etc. That means there is no one binary that runs within these religious worlds. There is no one certain sort of rule that is being followed. That means there are constant arguments, there are constant debates about whose god is better, on whose religion is better, on whose practices are better. But I also think that some religions are more problematic than others, right? Probably some religions are more patriarchal in nature. Some religions are probably interpreted in ways that are like probably, let's say, patriarchal in nature, or probably that do not allow, let's say, for like some countries, like some countries do not allow girl children to have like education, or they are probably told to just stay at homes, etc. I think this uncertainty that on which religion or which interpretation of it, or in which like sort of country you're going to be born as, or and within that country which community you're going to be born as, I think we are already able to prove why we as like that certain person would want to be born in a unreligious country, or like a country where religion doesn't exist. Because I believe when you get born into this country, you constantly have risks that, hey, I can probably be born in a minority community in a country that is like of an opposite religion or does not support my community, which is already pretty bad. Means people are going to be hostile towards you. There is probably going to be discrimination or racism towards you. There is probably going to be hate crimes or like some sort of like let's say hostile behavior towards you, right? But I also think you could probably be from like the LGBTQ community, right? That means you could grow up to be of some sort of other sexual identity. You could be probably grow up be and like be gay or like be lesbian, etc. But none of these religions support them. No religion is going to support your sexual identity whatsoever, and you are uncertain on whether you're going to be like from this LGBTQ community, etc. I think then you do not want to take this big ass risk that, hey, I'm going to be still going to get born into this religion, right, and still going to face this certain like sort of risk, etc. But then you could probably also be born, this is a 50-50 chance, by the way, that you could be born as like a girl child in a country where girls aren't seen as equal to men, or there is like patriarchal sorts of interpretations of religion that girls should always be like homemakers, child caregivers, or probably they don't deserve education, etc. They should wear like XYZ clothes, etc. I think then you add all of these risks and harms. I would certainly want to be born in a country where religion doesn't exist, and I can have the freedom of my choice and the freedom of what I want to be and what I want to think and write. But I then think that society in itself is going to be very much right, because if op wants to run, and I'm preempting them here, if op wants to run the case that, hey, you get better community feeling, or you get better hope, or you get better sort of belongingness within religion, or like there is more sort of empathy and all within like religions because God is like teaching you good moral values, etc. I think when there is a world without religion, these people now, instead of fighting about their own gods and fighting about interpretation on whose god is better or like whose teachings are better, these people are able to discuss their own human values. That means instead of constantly talking and debating about gods, you're discussing and discoursing about your own moral values. What do you think is right or wrong? What do you think currently within the society is like right or wrong? What is something that needs change? What is something that we can constantly update, right? Because there is no one strict law made by God that is constantly saying that, oh, I cannot change God's saying. Anyone can change anything as long it is coming from a human's perspective. That means if someone says that, oh, I'm not going to send my girl to like my girl child to educate because my God said so, I probably cannot confront him because that is very sentimental to him and it will probably offend him. But if that God doesn't exist, if I'm in a non-religious world on the comparative, and I said that, and I hear this man saying that, oh, I'm not going to send my girl child to school or like education, I can call them out. I can say, this is not the right behavior. I send my girl child to school. My moral values are different. This is by far the most solvency you could also create within the society. You could bring more morality. You could bring better values as well. But I think empathy, charity, compassion would still exist because these are like innate human emotions within you, right? That means when you see someone on the road probably asking for food, the only reason you give them money or you give them food isn't because, oh, God taught me. It's because we probably feel empathy or like sympathy from inside for that person. You want to help them because you are like a certain level above them, or you feel like you have that power. I think this is going to still stay symmetricized, and op can never create a delta on this that, oh, this is the reason we need religion, right? But then what are the burdens we push on op then? I think op has then a very high burden case to first of all prove, if they want to run this case on community, that why is their community going to be so far much better, and why do you need then this religion when there are constant harms or like, you know, dangers within the society that you want to avoid at all costs. But why is then the society in itself going to be better? Why is there going to be more better discourse, or why are people going to improve even when their God contradicts their own thoughts, or when there are contradicting religions in their interpretations, right? But also, why is religion something so proximate to you? Why do you need this? Why do you want this? Because I feel like even without religion, there are families, there are friends, there are probably your colleagues, your teachers, people you constantly meet and greet in your life, people you talk with like in your life, that can still give you this feeling of proximity, that can still teach you a lot of things, that can still make you feel close at home, etc., without the need of religion. Any POIs? Seeing none, I think then let's move on to weighing as well, right? I think I've already proved to you that the biggest reason I would want to not, etc., but also probably safety of your own self. That means you can probably be any sexual identity you want. You can have education. You can have everything. Thank you. Proud to propose.
Thanking PM for the very fine speech, calling upon Hello whenever. Here.
Just 15 seconds. Warm greetings, everyone. Manvi Goel this side. I'll be the LO from the opening opposition, and I'll like to please raise your hands for the POI and don't verbalize it or don't heckle in between. And I may or may not take one, but the second speaker will definitely take one from the opening opposition. So. Preferably from the closing side, then the opening side, and I would like to start with a self count of 3, 2, and 1. Panel, today's debate is not about whether religion mistakes. Every institution in the history has. Governments have started wars, science has built nuclear weapons, markets have created inequality. If government only proves that religion has caused harm, they have not won today's motion. Their burden is much bigger. They are asking every unborn person to permanently remove one of the humanity's oldest institutions before that person even knows who they are. Under the veil of ignorance, this is not a question about perfection. It is a question about risk. Before I am born, I don't know whether I'll be rich or poor, healthy or sick, pack or the majority, or the lonely minority. Therefore, I don't choose the world that looks ideal in theory. I choose the world that is safer across the largest number of possible lives. Our first principle is simple. Government assumes that if religion disappears, the problems connected to the religion also disappear. But that assumption is false. Religion is not the thing that creates division. Religion is the one way through which human beings express a much deeper instinct. Human beings naturally form identities. They naturally divide themselves into groups. They naturally search for something larger than themselves. Removing religion or those instincts do not disappear. They simply attach themselves to something else. Politics become absolute, national identity becomes absolute, race becomes absolute, culture becomes absolute. Government therefore does not remove the fire, they only change what the fire burns. Now, before giving few rebuttals to the government side, let me give few arguments. The first argument: religion tells people that no human being is the highest authority. How? A king can be questioned, a government can be questioned, a majority can be questioned, because people believe there is a moral authority over human beings. Without religion, the highest authority becomes the state, the political ideology, or the majority itself. That is much more dangerous under the veil of ignorance. Religion constantly tells individuals, you are not the center of universe. That encourages forgiveness, charity, patience, self-restraint. Without religion, people are more likely to believe I decide what is right. Religion does something very important that government ignores. It places a limit on human power. It tells every king, every government, and every majority that there is something bigger than them, and that they are not free to decide right and wrong however they like. Under the veil of ignorance, I don't know whether I'll be powerful or powerless. If I become the weaker person in society, I would rather live in a world where there is one more institution capable of questioning those in power than a world where human institutions become the absolute source of authority. Now, coming back to few rebuttals. Panel, government keeps telling you that religion causes discrimination. That is not what they prove. What they actually prove is that people have used religion to justify discrimination. These are two completely different things, Chair. Human beings have always divided themselves into groups. Before religion, people fought over tribes. Today, many conflicts have happen over race, language, nationality, and politics. Tomorrow, if religion disappears, people will simply find another identity to divide themselves. Basically, the problem was never religion. People will find one or the other way to have discriminations, to form classes and everything. But religion is never the sole problem. Government has only removed one justification. They have never removed the human behavior itself. Therefore, they have not solved the problem. They have only changed its language. Government tells you the religion harms LGBTQ people. Even if I accept that some religions have done this, they still have one missing step. They must prove that removing religion removes discrimination. They never do. Homophobia have existed in political system, cultural systems, and even secular societies. They tell us the real cause is not the religion alone. It is the prejudice inside the society. Therefore, removing religion does not not guarantee the protection they promise. Government themselves admit there are many religions and many interpretations. Ironically, that weakens their own case. If religions are interpreted differently, then the real problem is not the religion itself, but this is how the people interpret it and use it. Removing religion therefore attacks the wrong target, because the same people can misuse the culture, politics, or nationalism in exactly the same way. Government never proves that religion creates discrimination. They only prove the discrimination sometimes speak through religion. They are completely two different claims. If tomorrow religion disappears, then human beings don't suddenly stop creating us versus them. They simply replace religion with race, politics, language, or nationality. Their world would change. The labels of conflict not the very existence of conflict. So basically the conflict would still be there, the discrimination would still be there, everything would still be there, but with different names. So religion is not the sole problem, and removing religion does not eradicate the problem they try to prove. So these both are totally symmetric, but still better in our case, because we have proved that our world is safer to live in. Once that mechanism falls, every example they gave about minorities, LGBTQ people, and women also falls, because they never proved those harms disappear, only they assumed it's true. Our first argument about human beings understand life itself. Religion is not simply a list of rules. Religion is humanity's oldest attempt to answer the biggest questions that every person eventually faces. Questions like, why am I here? Why do people die? Why should I continue living when life becomes unfair? Why should I sacrifice today for someone else? Science can explain how the body works. It can explain how the universe works. But science does not try to answer why life should matter to me personally. The gap will always exist because it is not a scientific question, it is a human question, and religion is the one answering you all these doubts and self conflicts. Now notice what happens in government's world. They remove religion, but they do not remove these questions. Every child still grows up in asking why the suffering exists. Every adult still experience loss. Every family still experiences death. Human beings will always search for answers, because uncertainty is a part of human life. This no, please don't verbalize. This means the demand for belief never disappears. The only thing government changes is where the people search for those answers. Yes, now take the POI. 3, 2, 1. Okay, not now. More importantly, religion allows different people to answer these questions differently. One person may find meaning through one religion, another through another religion, and another may reject the religion completely. But all of these choices exist because religion exists as an option. Government's world permanently removes one entire way of understanding life before I even have the chance to experience it. So as an actor before birth, that is not a choice I would make. I do not know who I will become. Maybe I will never need religion. Maybe I will reject it completely later on. But this is not all these questions I already know under the veil of ignorance. So I successfully proved you and why under the veil of ignorance choosing our world is better than the government. I'm proud to oppose. Here the points will be taken up by the second speaker.
Thanking speaker for the very fine speech, calling upon DPM whenever. Here.
Just 30 seconds. Will be it, and shout outs. I will give 2 shout outs. One to Kierat. He's like one of my best teammates, and like he's just so fun to team up with. 2, I will give a shout out to my girlfriend. She's the best person ever. She has supported me through everything, and I cannot be more thankful for it. Okay, I will be starting on the self counter. Or just will there be a timer? I will just put a timer by myself. Just a second, I will just put a timer first. Okay. Starting on the self count of 3, 2, 1. Op has no case because we have already proved to you what is a logically prior link. What is a logically prior link? Yes, we agree that humans are greedy, humans are stupid, humans have poorer incentives, humans are instinctively, like the instincts of humans have been bad historically. But what is our case? Our case is not that this will just not exist, human society will be the best. I think religion is exclusively problematic because of it like the ability of us not being able to question religion. What is religion? Religion is literally like catering to a particular god in a way that it is the highest supreme form of authority which cannot be questioned, which means that the amount of social change that opening opposition wants to have, or like probably wants to say, oh no, these harms exist on opening government as well because humans are inherently bad in nature and this harm precedes religion. We agree that this harm precedes religion, but these harms get solved because of human morality progressing in a way because humans want to live, which means that the better the morality is, the better like survivability is going to be, which means that you do not want to shoot your neighbor because another neighbor can shoot you, which means that the logically prior link is that you will probably go ahead and actually survive collectively way more into the future if you go ahead and live peacefully, which means that this is going to be true on our side. What is the problem of religion? It slows down the social progress way more and increases the ability to go ahead and still make kids and still go ahead and progress. Why is the social progress very, very low? The problem with the social progress being low is that the ability to question the religious institution is way high, because the religious authoritarians or the authority which holds the like religion that probably propagates the religious ideas are very biased in the first place. Even if they are not biased, the ability to question them is way more absent, which means that they can just be very misogynistic in nature. They can literally say things like, oh no, that like, you know, you should not send your daughter to school, etc., etc. These things will exist and these people cannot be questioned because they are literally the messengers of God according to you, which means that your ability to question them is highly undermined, which means that this is going to slow down the social process, which means that even state cannot enter in this because state obviously empirically we know that state cannot enter into the enter into religion because religion is a personal thing, but it ends up actually impacting the whole community and the beliefs of whole community. I think so this is significantly very bad, and this can literally just trickle down to the harms which my prime minister has already talked about, which means that opening opposition does not dismantle our case at all, which means that religion is going to be an exclusive problem and there are going to be religious authority which cannot be questioned, which means that it is an authoritarian system which cannot get solved, and we probably have systems which are democratic because we do not have any supreme authority over us which cannot be questioned, which means that there are competing moralities, which means that the competing morality fight to become the best morality, and the best morality survives. This is the best case possible for us, and this is the best thing possible because the discrimination on our side will decrease way faster and it will actually get you the best life possible in the comparative. Now, what is our second thing we want to talk about? The second thing, that how do you deal with pain? How do you deal with suffering? I think so they say that we are going to have uncertainty. I think so uncertainty is literally very fine when you are told by your God that the suffering in your life is because of your own actions or because you just fucking deserve this. This is just so fucking sad. Imagine a very close one of your of your family member die, which means that when they die, you probably hear the literal rhetoric of religion that this happened because of their own actions, or if not, that this is probably the plan of God. I think so. If you believe in a God with whole heart, if you have lived your life like this, when you fucking realize that God is the fucking villain, they killed my father because it is a part of fucking plan, the amount of fucking pain you will go through is just so insanely high. You will just think that God killed my father, God killed my mother, or literally, since life is painful, you will eventually feel these things. You will eventually go through huge amounts of suffering, and when you will realize that this was some amount of plan, I think so this is going to shatter. This is going to be so sad. I think so you are not going to be able to deal with this in a better way. I think so people literally leave religion because of these things. People literally feel a lot of pain, and the justifications they hear and the explanations they hear are so fucking painful to these people, and the people literally feel the most down. People do not literally even treat them in a good way. See, when the most proximate thing which will happen on our side is people giving each other empathy, people giving each other the catharsis. Oh, we understand the pain you're going through, we understand this is very terrible, this is not a part of a fucking good plan which God has, it is a terrible thing which happened. They will not diminish the feelings you are going through. I think so on our side, the ability to cope through pain, the ability to go through and suffer through suffering and understand it and probably rationalize it in a way which does not hurt you even more, which it does on opposition side, I think so is the most important metric as well, which means that the ability to deal with pain, the ability to go ahead and have a better life, since you're not going to be fucking born in a place where you can be literally a woman, 50% of the chance, by the way, or you can literally be a part of minority which is literally persecuted by religious ideas because they cannot be fucking questioned, which means that your life is going to be terrible on opening opposition. They cannot defend that. Any extension on closing opposition as of now, please? 3, 2, there is no extension on closing opposition, and we are fine with that. We are going to run our case. Okay, so what is our impact? And our impact is simple. We do not want to take that risk of a person living through hell or living through literally life which they cannot go ahead and cope through. They can probably have a huge amount of identity crisis because of the world they are living in. You can probably literally have a midlife crisis because of this, that my religion is treating me this way or my God is treating me this way. This is so fucking insufferable. I cannot live like this. This is just a fucking terrible life. And by the way, you do not even know what the choice you are going to make. So you probably don't even make sense of the feelings you are going through, which means that it is so fucking terrible. Secondly, I think so it is still better. I think so you probably still have community which are good, because competing moralities probably fight for the best progressive morality, which means everyone can survive. Everyone can survive in a very good way, which means that you probably still have good morality, which means that the morality code is still going to be there, which means the closing opposition cannot extend on us on this idea, which means that it is going to be fine on our side, which means that there are harms which literally exist on closing opposition, opening opposition. People literally believing in themselves and doing fucking crimes, believing they are right because their God told them to do so, or probably justifying it because of their own God, which means that it is the most toughest form of extremist ideologies to defend and to actually tackle, which means that these will exist on their side as well, and this can literally go ahead and create so many harms. The harms of literally people of the twin towers, etc. These are all the things which are driven from religion. These are the extreme things which happen from religion, and we know this because religion cannot be questioned. This is the supreme authority which can literally drive you to do anything, literally anything. And obviously humans are bad in nature, but it amplifies it in a way that it justifies for you to do anything, even if it is the worst harm possible on anyone. I think so this is the reason we win. Opening government take this debate. Very proud to propose.
Thanking speaker for the very fine speech. Calling upon DLO whenever. Here.
Yeah, panel 10 seconds. Yes. Greetings everyone in the house. Greetings all the chair panel. Yeah, congratulations to you as well to make this far. And yeah. Okay. Panel, I rise as deputy leader of opposition in this house. Before formally starting my speech, preferred pronouns are he, him. POIs with the raise of hand after the 5th minute. I will definitely take one from OG, and if not, then from CG. Let me reset my timer and then I will begin. My meet timer will show up whenever my speech begins. Starting my speech with a reverse self countdown of 3, 2, and 1. I think a lot of mischaracterization with regards to the suffering in this debate has occurred from the OG. Panel, understand that the DPM's case works if the religion always tells people that suffering is punishment or that God wanted their family member to die. This is simply not how the religion functions across the world. Different religions, different denominations, and different family members explain sufferings in a very completely different way. Some see it as a free will, some see it as a natural event, some see it as the number of even human beings cannot fully understand. Government deliberately picks the harshest interpretation and treats it as if it represents every religious experience. Under the veil of ignorance, I compare the institution, not the worst of the interpretation, worst interpretation of it. They have confused explanation with experience. Gav assumes that hearing a religious explanation automatically makes suffering worse. They never prove the mechanism. In reality, people respond differently to exactly the same event. For many people, believing a loved one is in the peace that life has a larger meaning, or that suffering is not the end of existence, helps them continuing life. For others, it may not. Panel, understand. The point is simple, that religion does not create one universal emotional outcome. Government builds their entire impact on one emotion and assumes that every believer experiences it is in the exactly way. They ignore what biggest gap in the DPM's case. They tell us that religion sometimes gives the painful. Fine. What is the answer in their world? Your father still dies, your child still dies. I mean, some actors, and cancer still exists, accidents still happens. The pain does not disappear because religion disappears. Government only removes one explanation, and they never prove that the new explanation helps people more. That is completely missing. Saying this is just random is not automatically easier to live with than believing there is something having a larger meaning. They compare religion to the perfect instead of comparing the religion to their world. Panel understand very important distinction in this house, that human empathy is not unique to OG. They say people will simply comfort each other without religion. The comparison is completely false, because empathy exists in our world also. Religious families comfort each other. Religious communities support each other. Religious charity exists. Friends still hug each other and families cries together. Human empathy is not created by removing the religion. Therefore, empathy cannot become the exclusive comparative on their side of the paradigm. Now understand why this matters. Why because this emotion is asking, not asking whether religion has flaws. Every institution does have. The question is that I, as an unborn person, should permanently remove religion from the world. If the government cannot prove that removing religion actually removes these harms, then why would I take such a huge risk before I ever know who I am? Understand, panel, whatever they are telling me can be the flaws of religion, but they are not actually the real essence. What the religion does is, because current status quo, the discrimination is being done through the religion, does not mean that the religion itself is the cause. People misusing the religion in itself is the cause. If Wait, don't verbalize. Notice what government words look like. One religion disappears. The highest authority becomes the human being themselves, the push by elo. Maybe it's the state, maybe it be the political ideology, maybe the majority. But there is no longer one institution standing outside those structures saying you are wrong. Government celebrates that religion disappears, but they never explain how now they limit the power in the first place. They simply assume that power will behave responsibly. History gives us absolutely no reason to believe that. This is why religion is not merely a private belief. Religion is also a social institution that constantly reminds society that power has limit. Before I know who I will become, I would never choose to remove one of very institution capable of placing those limits without first proving that something stronger replaces it. And that is completely missing on their side of the paradigm. Government, okay. Yeah, now I need to tell you that why today's actor analysis become extremely important. Because before I birth, I don't know where I'm going to be. I have already mentioned maybe someone who never believes in religion. That is perfectly possible. But I also don't know whether I become someone for whom religion becomes deeply meaningful. Government asks me to destroy that possibility for every future version of myself before I know which version I become. This is not how the rational people makes the decision under the uncertainty. Rational people preserve the valuable options because they know they cannot perfectly predict their future needs. The biggest push is, if you don't believe in the religion, you can later on go and say that I don't want to be the religion, and you can live your life in your own way, the way you want to. Government wants you to look at the very bad that religion has ever done. We deny those. We'd never deny, but we deny that is something of very over romanticized. Our question has been much bigger. After religion disappears, what actually becomes better? The first clash is about human behavior. Government says that religion creates discrimination. We say that religion is the only way, like the discrimination is getting expressed on themselves. Ask yourself a simple question. If religion disappeared tomorrow, would human beings suddenly stop creating us versus them that I already have been pushed through my allo speech? Would politics disappear? Nothing gets panel. That is extremely symmetric. People have to build their identities. Now, how would they build their identities through? They will build their identities through the random ideas, the random ideologies, the political narratives and all that. The division is still, the partition still exists on the side of the paradigm. And they have completely removed the choice that I have already pushed you. Why that choice can be extremely. Government never compares suffering. They only compare explanations. In both worlds, I have already explained you that father can die, child can die, life can completely fall. The only question is whether religion always makes that pain worse. They never prove that. Millions of the people have continued living precisely because religion gave them hope that suffering was not meaningless. Millions of others have rejected religion completely. That proves a simple thing. Religion does not create one universal emotional outcome. Therefore, as an actor, I would as an actor under the veil of ignorance, I would permanently remove one possibility source of like comfort before I even know which type of person I am actually going to be. The third clash, okay, the another clash of yeah. Let us compare the worlds that exist. In the government's world, they promise you a society where discrimination becomes smaller simply because religion disappears. The options like LGBT community and all that, they never prove the mechanism. In our world, we never promise the perfection. We simply shows that how human beings will face a search for identity, meaning and moral guidance, and religion remains one legitimate way of fulfilling those needs while also acting as an independent institution capable of limiting powers and preserving centuries of human wisdom. Our world recognizes human nature. Their world that human nature suddenly changes for all the reasons.
Thanking speaker for the very fine speech. With this, we come to the end of the top half. Calling upon member of government. Here.
Can I have 30 seconds?
Yep, take it on.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Aaryan Chaudhary. A big shout out to all my DevSoc teammates from Shivnada University. Thank you so much for supporting us, to both me and Araina throughout this entire time. Much appreciated. For POIs, do not badger. Please, mention it in the chat. If you keep on badgering, I will not respond. Other than that, I'm going to maintain my own timer which I have set up. All right. I will start with the reverse countdown of three, two, and one. Okay. So, well, let's start with what religion actually ends up doing. That's the main goal of this entire debate, right? Why our world or why their world would be better. Now, let's start with with very basic just facts. Religion is just historically patriarchal. Leads to a lot of people being forced into marriage, sati, a lot of death related, funeral related processions such as women not being allowed for funerals and whatnot in Hinduism and multiple other cases and different uh, religions. Now, what the religion in itself is a story, right? Assuming where system, as I just mentioned, it is one where system when patriarchy dominates every other thing there is, uh, assuming that they aren't, assuming there's a religion which doesn't necessarily support these in groups and out groups definitely will exist, right? Because religion works on the basis of the power. It works on one group being stronger than the other. Oftentimes, men being given more importance, more powers than women. This technically just ends up making it so much worse for like one side than the other. It, as I just said, it also ends up becoming a rule book, right? A religion is now going to tell you that, oh, you're not supposed to do this. This is bad. This will end up leading you to go to hell, for example. The idea of hell and heaven ends up developing fear mongering among these people. What this forces people to do is, well, do things out of, well, pure reward, for some reward which they're about to get, which is simply just not as good as a thing to do, because assuming a religious world, right? People are now going to do something. People are now going to do good deeds simply because they want to go to heaven. They want to go to a higher place of being. They want to be rewarded. But in our side of the world, in our case, people who are doing good would do it out of the betterment of the society, for the betterment of the other people, and this is going to resonate with other people. Now you do need to realize that this world has probably been going on for a long time, right? So the fact that this has been going on from like quite some time before you're actually born, the world ends up being a rather empathetic one, where I think where I think our OG just doesn't really build up on why the entire why our world is going to be more empathetic. I think this is how we show that, all right, yeah. Since other people are doing good, let us do good as well. Let us help others as well. This is where the our empathetic stand comes in. Now, I'd like to go on about some of O's arguments. Religion tells us that no human being has higher authority. While slightly cleared by the opening government, I just don't think that. I just think that there is some more obvious clarification needed. For example, and that because that is simply just objectively untrue, right? People, religious leaders exist in every religion there is. Priests, gurus, and multiple other religious leaders, right? And it is just they, of course, are followed by these people. They've obviously been given higher priority, higher no priority is the wrong word, authority, higher authority, higher well, trust in them. The trust in them is extreme to a point that it has led to these higher authoritative people ending up misusing them, and misusing them in various worse ways to a point where is just straight up illegal, and people and and this is so evident with the case of India itself. In the last decade, a lot of gurus have been caught trying to do insanely, not even trying to do, which have actively done insanely, just terrible things such as rape and whatnot, which is just simply unacceptable. And I'm sure more of them just haven't even been caught. On to the next argument about how people will still discriminate in our side of the world, finding new ways to just do that. While, of course, that is totally understandable, and that is, of course, going to happen because people are just built that way. You fail to realize that religion is one of the major reasons why every major conflict, every major discrimination happens in the first place. A conflict is directly related to discrimination, and this conflict is just gonna well, worsen because of this religion. So why do I feel like you're completely fine with one of the major reasons just not being omitted altogether? Would you just have it be there instead of going on a, well, other basis, on like another metric, which is probably, of course, going to be better than going to be better. And of course, this is an actor motion after all, right? I'm going to take your POI later. Please stop. Please wait. Sorry. What I was saying was, now, of course, this is an actor's motion, right? You assuming under the veil of ignorance, you don't even know that you're still going to be religious in this supposed religious world after being born or not, right? That just worsens your entire situation as well. Just imagine being born in a world where you just aren't religious, but the entire world is, to a point where conflicts are there throughout history and time, which is another thing you brought up for some reason. That still doesn't stand. Conflicts directly, as I said, conflicts directly stems from discrimination, and oftentimes this discrimination is because of religious, and oftentimes the religious motive is involved. So yeah, that's that. Uh, as I just said, empathy exists in your world as well, but it's just so much more better on our side. Another thing is that without religion, it's kind of ensured that women are treated better, because after all, it's now going to be a matriarchy, right? As simply because women are seen as life creators themselves. Women on our side are guaranteed to be better because they're seen as caregivers, just as I mentioned. Other than this, one of the major advantages which our world will have is scientific advancements. Our world is going to, because of the time averted from the time wasted, if I must say, on these religious arguments about hope and whatnot. All of this would rather go towards scientific advancement, making the world a better place to live in, making the world a more suitable place to live in, with less discrimination, less issues throughout the world, more equality and whatnot. Uh, Other than this, identity politics and also are going to be involved by a lot, honestly. What is now going to end up happening is that religious leaders are going to, well, kind of get their own way in these political areas, ending up making these conflicts just so much more worse, because now they're gonna because of, as I mentioned, in groups and out groups are going to be a major thing here. These in group these smaller groups are now going to get ostracized. They are going to get alienated and possibly even culled for it. And that is, I think, more than enough of a reason why we stand as a greater good. Thank you so much.
Starting speaker for the fan stage, call upon member of all. Here.
Here, can I have confirmation if I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Wait, can I also have confirmation if I'm visible? Okay, I'll assume that I'm visible. But before I start, shout outs first. Shout out to my org, UM Debate Society. Shout out to like specific people, Rain, Miel, Joshua, Harry, Fonzie, and especially Ace for going through all the rounds with me in this tournament. And congrats to them for like competing here in this debate also. And lastly, shout out to Jingo for like waiting for me to finish this tournament and everything. Yeah. So give me a few seconds to set up my timer. And okay. So starting my speech on my next word. Oh yeah, POI is through voice, and I like it around the 5 to 6 minute mark of my speech. But it depends on whether like I have actually enough time to accept a POI because I do have a lot to say onto my speech. But yeah, just try to raise that through voice around that time frame. But okay, starting my speech on my next word. Imagine being born into famine. Imagine losing your child
Given
before they
this
learn to
debate,
speak. Imagine surviving a war where every possible promise of justice disappears, right? Behind the veil of ignorance, you cannot assume you'll be born into comfort. You must prepare for the possibility that your life will be unimaginably difficult, right? In those moments, religion can be the only institution that tells people that there is still hope, there is still purpose, and there is still a reason to continue living. Let's engage with opening themes and to CG first. Firstly, OG told us that religion divides humanity because different religions constantly compete, disagree, and sometimes conflict with one another, right? They claim that religion should not define who we are. However, this misunderstands what religion actually does. Insofar as religion creates different identities, it simultaneously creates communities where individuals find belonging, right? We tell you that difference does not automatically translate into conflict. Families, churches, mosques, temples, and indigenous spiritual communities become places where people collectively build values and support systems, right? We tell you that removing religion does not remove division because people naturally organize around politics, ethnicity, and countless other identities. Secondly, then, they also told us that a world without religion creates greater autonomy because individuals become free from being dictated by religion. However, we think that autonomy without meaningful compass does not necessarily produce liberation. Human beings naturally search for like systems of belief, right? We tell you that if religion disappears, people do not suddenly become value neutral. They instead organize around different ideologies. Their will, therefore, does not eliminate dogma, but rather it simply removes diversity in how people search for meaning. Insofar as people possess different values and preferences, preserving multiple religious traditions alongside secular worldviews creates a more pluralistic society than like eliminating religion altogether, right? Thirdly, then, while CG is just basically like a derivative from their opening, the burden is then on their wit now to try to at least try to save their case, right? But I think it's already too late. Let's go with OO then. OO told us that human beings should not place something higher than themselves because religion limits human potential, right? While we think human agency is important, we think that their analysis remains incomplete because we tell you human beings have never transformed society through individual agency alone. Structural change has always depended upon collective identities, shared moral visions, and communities capable of sustaining long-term action. Without explaining how individuals organize themselves after removing religion, their analysis ultimately fails to account for how social movements survive beyond isolated acts of personal empowerment, right? Both opening themes therefore lose because they focus only on what religion does to an individual. What CO will answer here exclusively is what institutions allow marginalized people to survive, organize, and resist when every other institution has failed them. This is CO's main contribution here in this debate. We need to understand, panel, that every veil is in some way see-through. The veil of ignorance asks us to imagine that we know nothing about life we are about to live. Yet even behind that veil, we know one thing that with certainty. We will eventually search for meaning, belonging, and identity. We think that what happened in this debate is that it became so messy because all the teams forgot one important question. Where does human beings get better capacity to self-actualize, right? And how that individual flourishing ultimately translates into stronger communities and institutions. And that is what CO is going to give in this debate. Allow me to fix this round then. Firstly, onto my extensions. Firstly, we tell you that throughout history, many of the world's largest movements did not begin because people suddenly become more rational, right? They began because people found communities that convinced them they were worthy of dignity and capable of changing society. Religion has consistently functioned as a source of belonging, accountability, hope, and moral responsibility. For many people, especially like the poor, indigenous communities, refugees, women, and other marginalized groups, religion is not merely a set of beliefs, it is a safety net when governments fail, a moral anchor when institutions collapse, and a community when society excludes them, right? This is important because we are not telling you whether religion is perfect, but rather that we are telling you that that if you remove one of humanity's oldest source of collective meaning, this leaves vulnerable people better or worse off, right? How do we delineate from our opening then? Firstly, Simple. We reject the assumption that the veil of ignorance requires us to erase every possible source of difference. Every veil is in some way again see-through because rational actors know that uncertainty demands protection against worst-case scenarios. Behind that veil, you do not know whether you will be born wealthy or poor, privileged or marginalized, or like healthy or grieving. Right? Because of this uncertainty, rational actors preserve institutions that provide meaning, belonging, and resilience during life's most difficult moments. But secondly, then, this is what makes us different from our opening because they only told you that religion is important because it protects individual freedom. But here, explicitly from CO, we tell you that religion is important because it protects the social infrastructure that marginalized communities build for themselves, right? Insofar as people inevitably seek meaning, our world allows multiple religious and secular communities to coexist rather than forcing everyone into a singular secular framework then. Onto my cases. Firstly, religion functions as a language of resistance for the oppressed. What do we mean by this? Religion has repeatedly provided marginalized communities with the moral vocabulary necessary to challenge injustice. This looks like, for example, the People Power Revolution in the Philippines. Religious institutions provided sanctuary, legitimacy, and spaces where ordinary citizens could collectively resist dictatorship rule. The significance was not simply that churches existed, but that faith gave people the courage to believe that oppression was neither neutral nor permanent. This ultimately trickles down to stronger democratic movements because communities already possess the organizational structures, moral legitimacy, and shared identity needed to mobilize against injustice, right? Insofar as marginalized people often lack economic or political power, religion provides them with moral power capable of sustaining resistance. But secondly, it removes removing religion also erases the cultures embedded within it, right? What do you mean by this? Religion is inseparable from countless traditions, indigenous practices, family customs, and forms of artistic expression. Entire cultures understand birth, marriage, death, and celebration, grief, and community through religious traditions. Removing religion therefore removes much more than belief. It removes the cultural foundation through which communities understand themselves. This ultimately trickles down to weaker cultural diversity because communities become increasingly homogenized under dominant secular norms. Indigenous people and minority communities suffer disproportionately because spirituality often forms the core of their collective identity, right? The impacts are therefore explained in 7 layers. Firstly, on a personal level, religion gives individuals opportunities for self-actualization by allowing them to find purpose beyond material success, right? It provides hope during grief, accountability during moral uncertainty, and belonging during isolation. Secondly, on our side, poor communities benefit because religion frequently becomes the institution that remains accessible when healthcare, education, and government support fail them. Thirdly, women and members of the LGBTQ community, despite sometimes experiencing exclusion with religious institutions, have also built affirming faith communities that advocate for equality from within rather than abandoning religion altogether. But fourthly, social movements benefit because religion supplies moral legitimacy and long-term community organizing. And fifthly, culture survives because traditions remain connected to future generations, and communities become stronger because they possess institutions that encourage mutual aid and collective responsibility. Right. Lastly, then on our side, states benefit because active civic and faith communities often strengthen the democratic participation and social cohesion rather than leaving government solely responsible for every aspect of social welfare. Right. But even if government tells us that religion has harmed LGBTQ individuals and justified discrimination or contributed to wars throughout history, we readily concede that these harms exist. However, we tell you that the harms are not mutually exclusive to a world with religion. A world without religion does not eliminate prejudice, authoritarianism, nationalism, and all those other things, right? History demonstrates that secular ideologies have likewise produced persecution and oppression and mass atrocities. And if you want to live in a world where all of these things can be alleviated, then please live in a world where religion exists. For all those reasons, opposition.
Can you speak up for the front speech? Sorry for point number. You're here.
Just give me 30 seconds to wrap up my notes. Hi, first shout outs. Thank you to everyone from SNU over here, Kamya, Rhea, Vikram, Subrajit. You all are my goats at the end of the day. Thank you to my parents for tolerating all of my yapping. With that being said, hi, my name is Araina Anand. My pronouns are she, her. For POI, please raise your hand. Please don't verbalize the POI. I also only take one POI per speech. Wait, let me put on the clock. I'll be starting my speech on a self count of 3, 2, One. What do both of the op benches tell me? Op benches tell me that fine, you might get some sort of like personal solvency when you like start to become like a devotee of religion, but it also means that, and they concede that there are like a shit ton of like discrimination which happens because of religion, right? Even though I believe like sure humans are like the most pieces of shit ever to exist, and they find a way to like oppress each other. Religion just adds to this, right? Meaning that religion is a system in itself which justifies the oppression through like which justifies oppression of other systems, right? And this is something which I'll come to later. But also I think let's start by okay fine. On one, we tell you that okay, religion A, you okay fine, you are because of like, veil of ignorance, you don't know where you will be born, right? Or how you will be born, or like the socio-economic class you will be born. Say that you end up like choosing the religious world. There's a huge possibility that A, you're born into a religious family, but you are the religious minority, meaning that the main government over there is like the so for example it's like a Hindu state, but you are born a Muslim, and these Hindu and like there's like a lot of discrimination going on against Muslim people because you are the minority, meaning that because it's bound to be that there are like a lot of like competing religions in the world, there's like a lot of like then discrimination and oppression which is going on because everyone wants to be the one who is right. That's like one of the fundamental things about humans, that everyone wants to be the one who's like the right one who like solved the mystery of the universe. And because of like different competing ideals, it could be that you are the one who's like prosecuted, or you are the one who's oppressed, even though you do end up choosing the religious world. So I think opposition like doesn't realize, especially like closing opposition, that it is about the individual at the end of the day, because as it said, it's actor's motion, right? The meaning that individual is the one which matters the most. But also realize that whatever like harm they're trying to say, that religion like basically like allows you to like form a community, like minorities find some amount of like sanctuary in religion. Understand that religion is the reason why they like most of the time so do not like go for revolution, because that peace is the only way to head. Or maybe because they just go like, maybe this is what the God wants, or maybe this is what like the meaning of life is. Meaning when you are just religious, you end up like you end up just accepting the suffering which there is in the world, because that's like how most of the religions are structured, right? Meaning that's why most of the minorities don't end up having a revolution, because they end up being so tolerant because of like their religion. But also understand, like I think for women at least, because you might end up being a woman, I think a non-religious world is better. I think religion takes away all the credibility women have, the miraculous credibility women have when it comes to like giving birth, right? Meaning that they are the ones who are like then the source of like life in itself. Meaning that, but religion takes away all of this from them, right? It gives the entire idea that life comes from like God instead. Meaning that I believe in a world where there is no religion, women fundamentally are better because they are like seen for the effort, or seen how miraculous they are because they give birth. Meaning that this can also lead to like a matriarchal society, right? Meaning that all the patriarchal institutions which have been like proven to be disruptive don't exist anymore. Opening up has like a fiat to tell me that why the religion in this religious hypothetical world is similar to the religion we see in our current world in which we are living in. I think they don't provide this mech. I give you this mech in a very simple way. All these religions paint a devil and a god, right? And all the devil is like associated with certain characteristics. They're associated but as like certain characteristics, or like the way the things work, right? Or like a system around a devil and a god. When this system like keeps on like going through centuries of like this passed on centuries for centuries, these like scriptures fundamentally change, and they create like an in-group and an out-group, and that out-group is the one which is discriminated against. Meaning that this could be women, this could be a caste, this could be like any subsection of like a group, right? When closing comes here and tells me that minorities struggle, I think minorities, like religious minorities, wouldn't even exist on our side of the house, because religion simply doesn't exist. But also realize religion is something you're choosing the religious world, and this is our like main extension. You are choosing the religious world, but after when you like are born into this world, you forget that you chose this world. Meaning that one, you don't remember that you were religious before birth, and after birth there might be a huge chance that you're not religious anymore once you like maybe start to realize that religion is like a story which is like told by the religious, right? Later, meaning that you might not want to be religious anymore, but understand your parents will probably still be religious, right? Meaning that this leads to a family trauma because your parents force you to follow a religion. They indoctrinate you. They tell you to follow these strict laws of like religion, that you should not wear this, you should wear that, you should act like this way, exactly, like etc. 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 Understand this trauma is then deeply embedded inside you because that's how your family works, and you're someone who wants to be different. The entire struggle of this does not appear on our side of the house. I'm ready to agree that sure there will be some systems on our side of the house too which are based on discrimination, but I believe that if we like can omit like one system, then it's better. I think Opening Girls does an excellent job, but they don't tell me how like religious conflicts and religious riots, how they affect like institutions as a whole. But also how the government then is not, how the government has like been fucked throughout like a millennia because they have been so religious. Meaning that how many wars have been fought because of religion. Meaning that if it's a T is to zero world and religion never existed in this world, the entire world could look better, could look like a different thing, right? Meaning that there were no wars because of religion anymore, even though they were like there could be some wars, but like because of religion there were no wars. These like governments, like for example, these we don't like have and they can't play identity politics. Your day-to-day life is better because people are being pit against each other less, right? Because of religion. I think they don't like extend on these two things. POI.
In
Three.
your world, in your world without religion, what prevents majorities from creating new out groups based on race, nationality, and also if religious babas are doing all that, then that means religion is not the causing; they are using that.
Understand religion
And actor
babas are a byproduct of religion. I got it. Religion babas are a byproduct of religion because they understand the amount of fear mongering which can be done through religion. Because you can tell people you'll either go to hell or heaven, or God will like reprimand you for something or won't reprimand you for something. When they understand there's like this hidden power in religion, it's natural that people will come up and abuse this power. Understand that's why religion babas are bound to exist on your side of the world, right? Because religion exists, and that's why. But also, I think like understand there will be systematic issues on both sides of the world. We are not saying our world is like bereft of systematic issues. I'm saying there are more systematic issues on your side of the house because religion is used to create in groups and out groups. It's like it like reinstates like different rhetorics, which like then like reinstates like discrimination as a whole. But we also tell you that science would be better on our side of the house because of like a millennia humanity wasted in believing that oh maybe the sun going up and down is God's doing, or maybe the moon coming is God's doing, and you start to like actually developing on science, right? Because you understand that there is no God, it's just us humans, and you actually like you start to like develop more on science. But also life gets more meaning because there's no eternal heaven or hell anymore. There's no immortality in afterlife, and that's why your life garners more meaning because because it's short now and every like moment matters. Thank you.
Time and speak up for the country, each calling upon operate. Here,
Hi, am I audible? Okay, I'll take that. Mhm. Hold on, just give me 30 seconds to fix my notes, if that's okay. Okay, I'm back. My name is Heidi, and I am the opposition whip. Pronouns are she, her. POI preference is around 4 to 5 minute mark. But since I have a lot to say, I hope no one will badger by raising it repeatedly through voice. I would really appreciate it if you would kindly just raise your hands and wait for me to accept your POI because I promise I'll try to engage. And okay, I'll start my speech now in. Hold on, where's my timer? Okay, I'll start my speech now in 3, 2, 1. Behind the veil, the safest choice is not to erase every institution that can be abused. It is to preserve the institutions that powerless people may need to survive, organize, and resist. Because religion is imperfect. We can see that it has been used to justify discrimination, patriarchy, and even violence. But government must prove something much larger, that abolishing religion removes those harms rather than merely changing their language, and that vulnerable people are better off after every religious community, welfare network, and source of spiritual meaning disappears with it. Now I will first respond to CG, explain why our member was decisive, and identify the stronger government house, and finally explain to you why CO contributes more to OO here. Now to CG. CG gives us two serious claims in this debate. Firstly, that religion makes hierarchy self-enforcing because people fear hell, desire heaven, and obey religious leaders. Secondly, that religion creates in-groups and out-groups that intensify in discrimination and conflict. We can see that religion can sometimes worsen both harms. But even if that is true, CG never proves to us that the underlying human impulses disappear because people obey authoritarian politicians, patriarchal families, cultural tradition, and even conspiracy leaders without religions. These systems also use fear, shame, reward, and even social exclusion to control behavior. CG proves to us that authority can wear religious clothing, but they never prove to us that authority disappears when it changes into a flag, political party, and even cultural tradition. More importantly, religion is not one leader, doctrine, or interpretation. It contains disagreement, reform movements, progressive communities, dissent, and people who use religious principles to challenge those who claim religious authority, because CG treats marginalized people only as passive victims of religion. However, our member proved to you that they may also use religion as agents of resistance, because religious communities can give oppressed groups, for example, a common moral language, trusted institution, welfare and protection, and even legitimacy when confronting governments and majority. So even if religion sometimes strengthens oppressive authority, abolishing it also destroys institutions through which people resist oppression. Also, government counts religious oppression but conveniently refuses to count religious resistance. On conflict, religion can certainly become one identity to which groups divide, but ethnicity, race, national class, and even political ideology remain in the world. CG removes one possible banner of tribalism without actually removing the human tendency to create tribes, and their weaker material should not decide this debate panel, because removing religion does not automatically create a matriarchy. In fact, calling women natural caregivers repeats the same as gender essentialism they claim to oppose, nor do they prove that eliminating religion automatically converts every prayer into scientific research, right? Because CG spend their time asking whether religious people perform good deeds for morally pure reasons. And I tell you, the person receiving food or protection is considerably more interested in whether that help arrives. At best, CG proved to you that removing religion may reduce some specifically religious harms, but they do not prove freedom from hierarchy, dogma, or conflict. In exchange for that uncertain reduction, they certainly abolish spiritual choice and organized resistance for everyone. Now, why was our member important in this debate, right? Because our member was important because they proved that religion is not merely an individual belief, it is social infrastructure. Firstly, then in religion, that religion gives marginalized people collective power because people need shared identity and trusted leaders in physical spaces after public attention disappears. Now, religious institutions can provide all of this. When state fails, when emotional care, religious communities may provide food, shelter, emotional care, and even mutual aid. When states become oppressive, those same communities may provide sanctuary and a moral language through which people can say that injustice remains wrong even when the law permits it. This directly answered both government houses. When OG told us that religion harms women, minorities, and even LGBTQ people, our member provides the missing comparative that abolishing religion also removes affirming communities and welfare networks and even organizing spaces that these groups may depend upon. And when CG told us that religious leaders abuse authority, our member actually proved to you that religious institution can create authority independent from the state. Now, if government removes one possible source of oppression, but also one possible source of organized resistance. Secondly, that religion preserves culture and collective identity. For many indigenous and minority people, religion is inseparable from rituals around birth and stuff. Government does not merely delete private belief, right? It actually erases practices to which communities understand who they are and transmit that identity across generation. Because this harm is especially severe for minorities because dominant secular culture does not disappear. It simply becomes the only framework left. Now, government claims the world creates freedom through sameness. However, our member proved to you that meaningful freedom requires pluralism. You do not create independent thinkers by giving humanity fewer ideas to think about. Now let me move on to OG, because let me be fair, we take OG over CG, because OG gives us the cleaner mechanism in this debate. They explain that harmful ideas may become harder to challenge when religious leaders present them as divine commands. This creates a serious risk for women or anyone born into a coercive religious environment. CG largely repeat those harms through religious leaders, patriarchy, and group conflict while adding several unsupported predictions. But being the better government house does not make OG the best house in this debate, because first, OG proves religion may intensify prejudice. However, they do not prove it creates the prejudice. Patriarchy can survive through culture. Homophobia can survive through nationalism and tradition, and even minorities can still be persecuted through race and even political ideology. So even if removing religion reduces some discrimination, it does not eliminate the powerful people or institutions seeking to dominate others. Second, OG treats marginalized people only as victims of religion. However, a member proved to you that vulnerable groups also require collective institutions through which they find belonging, material support, and political organization. OG compares an oppressive religion institution against an ideal secular society where welfare therapy and exclusive communities and political rights naturally replace it. But behind the veil, you may be born in a weak and hostile state where those subsidies do not even exist. Thirdly, then, even if we concede that OG's word reduces some religious harms, the solution remains indiscriminate because they abolish the hostile religious community and a foreigning one. OG proves religion can make oppression harder to challenge. However, CO proves to you that religion can also give oppressed people the community, legitimacy, and organization required to challenge it, because government abolishes both functions, but they have not proven marginalized people are safer overall. Thirdly, then, why closing opposition outweighs opening opposition? Because OO gives our bench an important foundation. They prove that religion can provide extensional meaning and act as a moral authority above governments. We agree, and nothing in our case contradicts them. However, CEO explained to you how these values become material protection. Private faith alone does not sustain resistance. Vulnerable people need communities, welfare networks, shared identity, and shared moral language. OO protects the individual reasons to believe. However, our world protects the collective infrastructure through which vulnerable people survive and create change. If OO proved to you that religion gives people something to believe in, our house actually proved to you that religion gives marginalized people, communities, the power to act together on those beliefs. And that is why our case flies higher without knifing them, right? Now, let me weigh this debate then. Firstly, which harms are unique to religion? Because government never proved that oppression and dogmatism disappear. These survive through culture, nationalism, and even ideology and political power. And secondly, which will preserve more power for marginalized people? Because government may remove some religious oppression, but it also removes affirming communities, social movements, and moral legitimacy and collective resistance. And lastly, then, which loss is irreversible, right? Because religions can be challenged through secular law and freedom of conscience, but government permanently eliminates spiritual life and religious community for every person before they know whether they will need them. So OG is the better government house because they actually explain how religion can entrench harm, but the case that kind of flies against us because they prove religion can oppress. However, our CO proves to you that religion can also protect, organize, and empower the very people government claims to save. For those reasons, we oppose.
Thank you, Speaker, for the very fine speaker. With this speaker, I request all the panelists to stay back in the debate. Thank you for the debate, guys. It was really good.
I cross, but just like a small confusion I had. Was like my timer wrong, or was like this speech 8 minutes and above?
As per my timer, it was around 7 minutes 35 seconds, but nothing after 7:15 is noticed. So.
Yeah, sure. I was just like confirming on that because chairs usually
Yeah,
stop.
no worries.
Yeah. Thank you. Good debate.
Thank you, guys.